Okay, good. Okay, so a little introduction about Tableau user groups. If this is your first Tableau user group, Tableau user groups, are a place to meet people. That's what we do. People that love Tableau and love to learn from each other. A little bit about us. We're just creating a virtual place for the financial services industry. So for the data fam to get connected, to foster collaboration, growth, best practices, and to do some networking as well. So that's why we're using Remo, and we'll do a little bit of that at the end after our presentations as well. We want to get to know all of you. So what do we have for today? We have some amazing speakers, our first speakers, our first meeting. I am very excited about this and how they complement each other in requirements, and we're going to hear about gathering requirements and then doing some prototyping. So I thought that would be a some perfect topics. Will Perkins, he's a data visualization product owner at JP Morgan Chase. Actually, he just got promoted and I need to change that, right? But you'll talk a little bit about that, Will. And Robert, he's a designer at JP Morgan Chase. So if you want to be a speaker, you can see that little QR code on the bottom right. You can scan it and submit the form. We would love to have to give you an opportunity to be a speaker, a panelist in the future. So now a little bit about me. I love to help and serve others. I have a very wide background and experience. I came from the hospitality industry. Reason that I got into the hospitality industries because I wanted to help and serve others. So I quickly found out that that I could join any other industry and do the same. So I've been doing that ever since. And I like to learn a lot of things. And I'm kind of that person that if I'm ever you probably have these people in your own work environments, but I'm that person that people come over with like odd questions because they think I know the answers to, because I like to learn a lot about a lot. So I love just being that person and solving problems for others. So I also love my kids and my family, and I especially love my kids. Watching my kids play soccer. They play in elite soccer here in the United States, and they're doing very well. They're 15-year-old twins. You can see them on that picture. And I also coach my 7-year-old in soccer as well. And I recently acquired a little baby as well. You can see right there. So we're a big family. Love to get together and travel and watch soccer and do a lot of crazy things. You can see a lot of boys in my family too. So, and professionally, I'm a data culture enabler. You might be thinking, well, what is that? But because I like to help solve problems, I'm very analytical. I like to get kind of under the hood of things and see how and why things are happening, which helps to be this kind of liaison between the business and the technology and the data. And that's kind of what I try to do every day, helping others really understand the data, or helping the technology and the data teams really understand the needs of the business. And that's kind of where, what I do all day long. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Steve.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Thanks,
Steve.
Rui. Thanks, Rui. So my name is Stephen Artman. I work with Rui over at LPL Financial. Live in North Carolina with my wife and 2 rabbits pictured there. So that's the extent of my family. But we enjoy it. I have a nice quiet house, which makes working from home a lot easier for me. I've been in the financial service industry for a little over 8 years now, with a few different companies, and I really have found a consistent thread in this industry is that we still have a lot of people that are living in Excel reports, and so I love taking those Excel reports and turning them into something cool with Tableau and something usable, and love the challenge of getting adoption from executives on that. So that's about all I got right now, but look forward to meeting a lot of you in the future. So I'll hand it off there.
I think it's Ryan's turn.
I'm happy to speak.
Rui?
If I get to see my slide. All right. Awesome. Hey, I'm Ryan Rattenberg. Nice to see everybody here today. I just, I've got an awesome family, 3 teenagers, so that keeps me really busy. And we've got a big old golden doodle who likes attention too. So between all of them, that keeps us very busy. I also love cycling and I love data. So I love cycling and collecting data about my cycling. So I had to go look in Strava a little bit and pull some of my stats from last year, and I found that I climbed 126,000 feet of elevation last year, which is equivalent of 5.3 times going up and down Mount Everest. So there you go. So there's a little bit of data for you. I have been involved in Tableau since version 7, I think. So around 2012. Started out doing some server admin, some development, all kinds of things. Right now, I'm a product owner at Edward Jones for business intelligence and reporting tools, as well as product owner for advanced analytics tools. So that gets my fingers dirty in a lot of different data and analytics tools. But really, my passion is I love building things, and I love helping people see and understand data. That's my personal mission statement, is to help people see and understand data, which I think might actually be Tableau's as well or it was at some point. So, not too far off from that. But happy to be here and excited to be working with and help out with this group. And I bet I get to hand it to Diego.
Yeah, thank you. Rui? Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Very, very excited to have you here. Yeah, I don't have pets and I don't have kids, so that's why I don't have any other pictures. And you could say my hobby is actually a lot with using Tableau. I'm a data analytics specialist at Invesco, and as you can see in EMEA, I'm currently based in the UK, so that's why it's a bit dark here. I haven't been in the financial services industry for that long. Probably now it's around 8-9 months, but I've been using Tableau for probably more than 3 years by now. I'm a current Tableau Zen Master, I'm a Tableau Forums Ambassador, and a Tableau Speaker, board member, and user group leader. So if you have any questions around the Tableau community, feel free to reach out to me to connect. It can be LinkedIn, Twitter, however you want, or join our Slack channel too. And well, yeah, I told you I'm living in the UK, but I'm originally from Chile. And now, without further ado, I think what we all been waiting is the time of the presentation. So now we're going to have first, I believe it's going to be Will, and he's going to be talking us through requirement gathering. And after that, we're going to have Robert to talk us about prototyping. So as Ru says, probably fantastic 2 sessions to start, this user group, something that's going to be useful for everyone, and something that is very in the starting, when you start using Tableau, when you start building your dashboards. So now, Rui, next slide. And I think, well, actually, I think it's just Will's slides now, right? And you're in mute, Rui. Just
Typical. Yeah, no, Will, if you want to come to the stage and share your screen and take over. And then for all of us, Steve, yeah, we can hear you well. I think you're starting to share.
Yeah, and just a reminder, as Rui said, you can put your questions in the Q&A box in the right side of the chat. You can put your Q&A there, and you can also vote for those questions that you like if you have the same questions. And when we start asking Will all those great questions you're probably going to have, we're going to start in order for those that are most vote. If we don't get to answer all of them, you can stick a bit later. There is the Remo part where if you join at the start, you'll saw that we were seated in tables. You'll be able to sit in tables, and you may be able to ask Will there some of your questions. So now, Will, over to you.
Yeah, and for us, Will, sorry, for us, Steve, we can go off camera as well. This was what I was gonna say. I'm gonna go off camera as well, and go ahead, Will. I got you.
Is it flashing on your screen or is it just me?
Yeah, it is
I
flashing
hope
for
you
me
can hear.
too. Not sure.
Is my screen showing up normal?
No,
No, it is flashing
it's
a bit.
flashing.
Ah, that's so
Try
weird. All right,
try stopping it
I'm gonna
and
try it
reshare.
again. Yeah.
Typical.
It wasn't flashing earlier, everybody, so it was working
Yeah,
just
we did a
fine
tech
earlier.
check. It's not. We are not improvising here.
It's your fault, Will.
There we go. Much better. All right. So, good morning or good evening, good afternoon, wherever everybody is located. My name is Will Perkins. I am currently a dashboard product owner at JP Morgan Chase. As Roy said earlier, I did recently get promoted. That is another story that we can get into, over drinks or whatever, on how data famine Tableau has really changed career progressions for many people, and myself included. So I'm very fortunate along those lines. I've been at JP Morgan for a while. On the right hand side of the slide, you'll notice 3 different handles: Twitter, LinkedIn, Tableau Public. Obviously, I don't like consistency in names, but if you want to follow me on Twitter, add me on LinkedIn, check out my work on Tableau Public. Those are the links. So a little bit about myself. We are all human beings at the behind the data. So I do like to show off the picture as like the awe moment. Like, those are really fun. So professionally, I am a former bartender and a waiter, and I changed career paths about 10 years ago to get into financial services as a consultant, which I had no experience on. Came over to JPMC a little over 7 years ago now. Been using Tableau for a little over 5 years, and I currently manage a global team of developers. And I always add the bartender waiter thing, to bug my wife. She always like, oh geez, you're gonna tell that story again. But to me, it's one of those things to say, like, data, you don't have to have a background in a particular thing. You can have a very diverse background, and that really helps with our community from a diversity experiences, diversity of knowledge, etc. So that's kind of a little bit me from the professional perspective. Everything I've learned from Tableau, or learned about Tableau, has been around like the Tableau user groups, Fringe Fest, Twitter, YouTube, blog. So our community is phenomenal about sharing and giving. And so I try to do as much as I can to give back. And I currently manage a team of Tableau developers, the global team. So I'm pretty much split 50-50 between India and US. And we build a lot of really cool stuff for our executive suite. So I have a lot of fun with them. So some fun facts about me is I love truffles. So anytime I see truffle on a restaurant menu, I get whatever it is that's truffle, unless it's chocolate truffle. I don't like chocolate because I hate the taste of chocolate. I was actually talking with a bunch of friends today, and they were talking about doing a virtual chocolate tasting with everybody and doing this. I said, only if it's white chocolate. It's the only kind of chocolate that I enjoy. But I love to travel and spend time with family and friends, and spend time on the beach as much as possible. Haven't really traveled in the past couple of years for obvious reasons, but it's fun. And I've gotten visit the day twice on Tableau Public. Not as many as like Spencer Bow McCready or anybody along those lines that has, like, 58,000 different visit the days. But it's fun when you do a little project on the side and it gets recognized and people enjoy it. So I like that. Oh, didn't update this last bullet. We just had baby number 2 a few months ago. So he is 5 months old and super awesome. We love him, and he's super cute. So um, thank you, Google. All right. So what do I want you to take away from this presentation is it's this. You're not a Burger King cashier. Okay. You're not a Burger King cashier, and you are not a Burger King cashier. So simply put, we can tell our stakeholders they can't always have things their way. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's kind of dive into that analogy. So here is a typical request scenario in terms of how people order food, right? So you go to a fast food restaurant and you're going to say, I want a number 4. I want no pickles, no onions, extra large fries, Dr. Pepper. I see that picture on the menu. This is exactly what I want. That is what I want. I've already got my mind set up. That's it, right? When the order is correct, if you give the order out correct, then nobody says, oh, thank you. This is perfect. This is exactly what I want, because they're getting exactly what they expected. But if the order is wrong, you see a lot of issues. People complain. People ask questions of the manager. They want free food. There's just it's a snowball effect if something is wrong, right? They tell their friends, then just start spreading out like, oh, Tableau Burger is not a good place to get what you want, right? But how do we think about it from a business perspective? Right? People come in and they say, I need a dashboard, and I don't want anything fancy. I need all these filters. Give me some pie charts over here, add some tables because I want to dig into this data. And then they're going to give you a mock-up of exactly what they want. And they're married to that. And so if you deliver exactly what is requested, nobody says thank you, because you're getting the same thing. You're getting exactly what you got asked for. So no reason to say, oh, thanks, you delivered this perfectly. But if it's different, people generally complain. Why does it not match? I told you what I needed. I told you what I wanted. Your management could be contacted. Complaints are going to be made. Your peers are going to be hearing about this. So, it's not a very good experience when it comes down to a request like a fast food scenario, right? So what is an ideal request scenario? So I really liken this to a concierge customer relationship, right? So you're going to become a dashboard concierge. What is a dashboard? What is a concierge experience like? Well, generally a customer has needs that they want met, right? So they have dinner. You're in a new city. You've never been there before. Of course, you can Google, you can search things, but it's also a good way to just talk to people. Hey, what do you like? And just have that interaction. So there's a dialogue between the two parties. I go to the concierge desk and I say, hey, you know what? I've never been to Chicago before. I hear you guys have great pizza, and there's some other, local restaurants around here that I've heard good things about. Here's what I'm interested in. Let's talk about it, right? I'm curious. Give me some examples. Give me some ideas. So the concierge is able to walk that customer through multiple options, right? Well, what are you hungry for in particular? Do you want pizza? Do you want deep dish? Do you want local? Do you want something that's chained? Do you want to walk? You know, take an Uber? Like, how are you getting there, right? Asking all these questions. They're flushing out requirements. That's all they're doing. And then the customer then makes decisions based on that new knowledge. Maybe they don't go to the restaurant that the person requested because they were walking to the place and then they saw something that really piqued their interest and they said, you know what, I'm going to go here. But they make a decision based on that information that they receive from the concierge. After dinner, the customer will generally give that concierge feedback. The concierge says, how was everything? Did you enjoy it? What did you order? Those kinds of things. And it's a dialogue, right? So how does this work from a business perspective? Well, a stakeholder, your business partners, they have needs that they want met, right? They need a report. They need some analytics. They have questions about how is their business running. Well, there should be a dialogue between the parties involved, right? Because you've generally got your business people. You've got data people who are very knowledgeable in the data. You've got your dashboard developers. You've got your end users, right? You've got a swarm of people that are going to be leveraging this solution in some way, shape, or form, right? So there's dialogue between those parties. What are we trying to solve for? What is it going to drive our business? Do we have the data? What's our data visualization evolution? Where are we people at on that process, right? How do the end users expect to interact with this? So there's all these questions. The developer is then able to walk those stakeholders through their journey, right? We're starting here. This could be our first pass. We're going to evolve this to this future state, but we're going to get you along this way. We're holding your hand during this element, during this engagement. And the stakeholder makes decisions based on their new knowledge, right? Maybe they don't go for this nicer bar chart. They go to something basic that's not as interactive because they're not ready for that interactivity yet. They don't necessarily need viz and tooltips. It's an option, but they don't need it right now. They're not really that evolved on engagement, or they're going to really just drop this into a PowerPoint because it's part of a different suite of solutions. So the stakeholder can make these decisions based on the knowledge, based on all these conversations. And after the delivery of the solution, there's feedback, right? People say, well, how's it going? Like, the developer can have that recurring conversation, follow up a month later. Are you guys using it, right? All of these different things. Now, granted, all of these scenarios will drastically depend on each scenario that you go through, how your stakeholders interact with you, et cetera. So an example that I have here is my CFO had a request. They wanted a profit and loss sheet, right? Which generally is just a table of numbers and rows and columns based on accounting line items, comparisons, etc. And she wanted to dig in on particular metrics. And so she said, I want these 5 metrics on the right-hand side to always be here, and then maybe have one that's just kind of dynamic. So talking between and kind of understand why 5, why not 12, or is it always going to be these 5, or is it, just kind of just fleshing those things out. Do you always want a line chart? Do you want a line chart, maybe a KPI, or do you want bar charts? Just kind of going through these different options. We were then able to say, here's your profit and loss sheet, here's your P&L, and here are 6 dynamic sheets, or 6 dynamic windows that we just called them windows, where they can interact with the P&L and show high different metrics, put them in various ways to build your own story, right? So instead of getting just one dynamic box, got 6 with a lot of drill down, a lot of information that just blew their mind. And they didn't know that was even possible, but we're, instead of just taking that relationship of, this is exactly what I want, we had these conversations and delivered a much more intuitive and informative project than what we would have delivered otherwise. So, a lot of people are probably going to ask, how can I drive change, right? A lot of times when I talk about requirements gathering, or do this with a lot of times junior developers or people who are not as confident, this is the question, is how can I do this? Yeah, this is all well and good. You've got good stories, but how can I do this? I'm just not sure. Well, a lot of this comes from understanding the request, right? So understanding the request is, no matter what the business is, no matter who your stakeholders are, your industry, people want to solve the same problems generally, right? So they think about things as like widgets. We're trying to see how many widgets are changing over time. How many, how are our sales doing over time? How is our customer attrition over time? How are our shipping volumes over time? Like, everyone tries to see things in line chart, like they want to see things over time. They want to see comparisons of different grouping. A lot of it's the same time. So if you don't know exactly that industry or that topic that you're talking about, break it down to widgets or something that's a little bit more common. Oh, I understand. You just want to track your different categories by these numbers. Okay, I can follow that. Create an environment where it's a partnership, right? So everyone has an equal voice at the table, because we're all invested in the solution, right? If I deliver a dashboard that nobody uses, I have failed. And if nobody uses that, then they've wasted their time setting something up for us, right? This isn't going to happen overnight. And it is an uphill process in many groups, right? So I feel your pain. I've been there. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's hard work, but you can get to that point. And it's the process, not the product, right? I can deliver an amazing dashboard, but if I don't understand the process to get to that, if I don't understand it's not the tool, it's like, I know this is a Tableau user group, but I don't care if it's Tableau that you're delivering a dashboard, Power BI, Click, I don't care. It's not the tool that you're working on. It's how are we solving the problems? How are we getting from request to the solution, going from nothing to something? It's a process, and it's going to be an everlasting process. It's going to be a circular effect, right? So you're going to wash, rinse, repeat. You're just going to keep going and keep going and keep going, because you're going to answer those questions, and those questions might cause more questions, or maybe they change. They say, okay, well, we answered this. Now we know what this question is. We don't really care about that anymore. Now we want to switch gears and move on to something different, right? So again, it'll go back to requests, go back to the data, go back to the reporting, go back to visualization, right? Go along those lines. So why is this process important? Well, having a really good chart is literally just the tip of the iceberg. And I know I use a lot of idioms or a lot of like stupid phrases in here, but it's very true. It's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes that our stakeholders don't really care about, or they're not really, there's no value to them on that aspect. They care about the solutions, right? So there's a lot of stuff from the process perspective of understanding what is under the surface. How do we ensure we tighten this process up? And so things like bias in data. And it's not just saying like from a racial perspective or regional perspective. It could be, well, I only care about my stuff in this data, but if you filter out other businesses, maybe there's some correlation on those other businesses as to why this number is a thing, right? Or somebody telling you, I want this exact metric, and that metric might not be the right way to calculate or whatever, right? So there's some biases on how people want to view data. There's problems of why are there some anomalies, right? Why are there anomalies? Well, it could just be bad data from the source system, right? We need to fix the source system, and that needs to be taken care of before we can really have something that's useful in the end, right? So there's all these things that just go into what we do, and we need to understand. So in this process, I'm not telling you to go chase the waterfall mentality, right? For anybody who's been doing development, I'm not telling you to build a requirements document. I'm not telling you to say, I need 100% of requirements up front. Then I'm going to deliver exactly what we've discussed about and never look at this again. Whatever your development process is at your company, a lot of companies are going to like a Jira Agile Jira model, Jira's tool, an agile methodology of just like constantly improving and iterating, et cetera. So stick to the process that you're working in, and don't go chasing waterfall. So that's, if you don't get this reference, I may have dated myself. So how are we going to get there? Well, there's success in 4 easy steps. Okay. So the first step is understanding what is the long-term vision of these requirements, right? The second step is defining the technical specifications of the build. Next, we want to ensure that the dashboard and data are secure. And then defining the style and design from a UX perspective as the final product. Those are the 4 easy steps. If you can identify and answer these things and gather the information in this area, you're going to be successful in your solution. Now, note, as I said earlier, overnight results are not guaranteed. If you're experiencing trouble, please consult your team leadership. Side effects of implementing these steps might include, but are not limited to, it's environment. You're going to have more open communication. It's going to be more transparency. You're going to have improved solutions. You're going to have a stronger partnership between your team members, your business partners, everybody involved, right? So there's a lot of benefit in just doing this and sticking with the process, knowing that this might not be 100% the exact process for you, but there's a lot of good stuff that is across the board, the same for many people. So let's dive into these steps. So step 1 is understanding the requirements vision. You really need to understand, what is the goal of this dashboard? Why do people care about developing this dashboard? Now, one dashboard can never answer 100% of all questions that might ever be asked. And a lot of times our stakeholders try and solve for all the potential questions that could be ever asked out of this dashboard by saying, here's 18 different filters because I want to slice and dice. Maybe I'm going to find something interesting. One dashboard can have multiple goals, and that's totally fine. So a goal could be, I want to track the budget of my various sub businesses in my company, right? So business banking and consumer banking, how are our budgets going there? I want to find some outliers of, this financial services. I want to find outliers of customer deposits. I want to understand, where are we losing people or gaining a massive amount of inflow? Is it a net new customer? Did they start investing more, right? I want to understand actuals versus budgets across different regions. I want to understand, like, are we on target? Is there some regionality, right? I want to understand these. These are the goals that I have for this dashboard, is to get these answers. Also, maybe even say, well, what's the so what, right? It's good to understand from an exploratory, I want to get into this stuff, but an explanatory, here's the what and here's the so what. So even pushing a little bit further and saying, I'll give you this information. So what? We have more money coming in. What are we going to do about it? So what? Do you care? Well, then if you don't care, then I don't really need to build a dashboard. Let's pretend this didn't even happen, right? The next thing you want to understand is the business value. Now, not all values are going to be monetary, right? There may be things saying, I am removing these 5 processes that I currently do, and I'm consolidating this into a dashboard, and it's going to be an automated dashboard. This is manual, so there's time savings. I don't need to hire an additional 2 people to do these analysis over here because we've now automated this process here. So there's a lot of value that could just be, this dashboard could bring in a net $20 million for customers because we're able to dig in deeper. So just kind of going through that, understanding how is it prioritized with the business. Everybody can have their own prioritization depending on your book of work. You may have to adjust prioritization with other teams and figure things out, but how important is it for them to implement this solution into their business, right? This helps you understand, where do I need to focus from my team's perspective? Other important items can be like, well, what do you want to call this thing? A lot of times we just start developing something there. It's called one thing by our stakeholder, but the business calls it completely different. It could be something totally opposite of what the workbook is called. And then you just kind of get stuck to this workbook name on Tableau server because the link is set to that workbook name, right? And you just cause some issues. You want to understand, when do you want this by? Not when do you want me to deliver, but when is the implementation date that you need? Who are the primary audiences? Because I'm going to build something different for line level employees like bankers or my analysts than I would for my executive leadership team, and different than I would for maybe some regulators or whatever the process is. I need to understand these things, right? So this is very important from a requirements vision perspective. Next, we talk about technical specifications. Well, how are people going to interact with this dashboard, right? So are they going to use Tableau server? Are they going to use a web portal? Are they going to put this into PDFs? Are they going to be, just downloading the data? Understanding how devices are going to be used, right? So you're going to build differently for a desktop than you would for a tablet, than you would for maybe a mobile phone option. And this is critical because if you know these things up front, it's going to help you a lot more down the road to build better solutions. Understanding who are your key stakeholders, right? If something breaks or if data is wrong, who are the people that you need to reach out to? Because developers should not be responsible for 100% of the process. They shouldn't be responsible for the data and for the dashboard and for the testing and for the implementation and for this, right? You're going to have multiple people. Now, there might be teams that aren't as big, right? So maybe the developer does own the data, the ETL process, and the dashboard, right? Because you build an ETL process to solve for the dashboard. But in most cases, you're going to have at least, a business champion. You're going to have the dashboard developer that could also be data. You're going to have a tester, and you're going to have some end users, right? So you need to understand, who am I involving? How often do you need this information, right? Because depending on refresh schedule could depend on everything else, right? So these are things that you just asking these questions. You're not even talking about what the end state is going to look like. You're needing to understand, what are your criteria? What are your lanes that you need to stay in? Now, a security model, especially because this is financial services, I'm sure everyone can relate that there are highly regulated, highly governed things that we have to do or take into consideration on our development. So understanding, is there an existing dashboard or Tableau solution with the same type of controls that you're trying to match for this dashboard? So that way I can go and figure out, okay, this security model works well for this. This governance model works well for this. So I can basically copy and paste that over here. Is it row level security? Is it based on a particular project on the server that's very restricted? How do we handle that information? Will I apply these controls to 100% of the dashboard? Maybe I build a dashboard that has some, anybody can see this, and then maybe there's a couple worksheets where only a select few can see, right? So understanding how do you want to develop this and build your tightened up solution. Again, knowing this up front will definitely help your build on the as you move forward. What groups and individuals are going to be accessing this dashboard? So again, if you need to add people in, depending on your processes, do you need to create maybe an Active Directory group? Do you need to create something? Is there a lead time? All of these things are going to be very important for you to come into the development world. Now you get to the last step. And I always say this step is absolutely optional. The reason why I say that is because we should not be accepting a proof of concept or a mock-up from our stakeholders as a final draft. Even if we develop a proof of concept as developers, those things can change, right? We want to make sure that we are solving steps 1 through 3 as solidified as we can, answering questions, answering the needs of the end users, because things can change. We may have a variation of questions being asked as we're developing, and that's okay. As I said, we're going like an agile methodology, but when you get stuck with a proof of concept, people generally get married to that proof of concept. And if you get something that's different, that it said, no, that's not what we talked about. It's not what we gave you. We worked hard on the proof of concept. We know what we're doing. So you can let your stakeholders know. We'll use that as a guideline, right? That's an image, right? It's an artist rendering of a building, but we're going to build the building. A lot of times it looks the same, but it's going to be different because that's a drawing. This is actuality. So talk about getting married to the idea. It's true. The more work somebody puts into something, the more they focus and they say, but I worked hard. This is my idea. I did this for you. You want to make sure you set realistic expectations of style and design. If there is a template that your team uses, if there's a style guide, brand book, if there's things that should be common across the board, and somebody's mockup doesn't match, you can say, hey, you don't match this, but we'll make it look good. We'll make it fit into these things, right? Don't be scared to say no. You can read that over and over. You can say no to somebody if they say, I want to trend my this category over time with pie charts. No, why would I do that? That doesn't even sound that you can't trend with pie charts. You can't do these, right? So be comfortable saying no. It's going to be difficult at first, but the more you set yourself as the expert in your field or whatever, you're going to get more confidence. You're going to get more comfortable. And just because they requested something doesn't mean they're right. They may know. We don't deal with stupid people in our world, right? We have a lot of very educated people, a lot of people that know their business, but we know data visualization. This is our field, right? So let us do what is correct and tell the right story. So as I said earlier, the success model, if you can come up with the solution for these 4 things, you will have your overnight results not being guaranteed, but all of these benefits of how to implement this dashboard concierge thought process, right? So laying out the requirements, understanding technical specifications, understanding security and governance, understanding the visual examples, because even visual examples, there's a spectrum of people on their evolutionary scale of data visualization. So not everyone's in the same spot. So how do you meet the customers where they're at, but bring them along that journey with you? So there are some other presentations that are out in the Tableau space. Shanchili Jagannath has done and continues to do a design secrets for a non-designer presentation. There's a prior Tableau conference video on YouTube, but I know she's consistently doing it for Tugs as well. Judith Becker has also done a kind of a checklist of starting a new dashboard. So we are all doing very similar things. We're all building dashboards, we're all building ETL tools, we're all testing, we're doing all these things across the world. So a lot of people are generally trying to solve the same problems. But I do want to remind everybody, as I get my final slide, if you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, right? You're not changing anything, just, so complaining about it or thinking about maybe possibly someday implementing a change isn't going to get you something. So if what you're doing is not working, do something else. I know a lot of people that bump their head against the wall, like they get frustrated with their stakeholders, but you don't really do anything about it. You can't really change. So we need to be the catalyst for the change that we want to drive in our business and our firms and everything. So that's my presentation. Thank you. Do this. Stop sharing.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Rui.
Will, can you hear us?
Gotcha.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot. That was great presentation. Thank you very much for sharing. I do have a couple of questions here, and the first, of course, the question that always comes up is, will the presentations be shared? So, Will, if you don't mind, you can send us the deck so that we can maybe post it somewhere if you don't have that shared somewhere already. But I wanted to see if you could share those slides. The meeting is also being recorded, by the way, so we will share the recording later, so you can always refer back to the actual meeting as well.
Yeah. So what I can do instead of the presentation, I can I was brain dumping on kind of a document of sorts, kind of that outlines all of these things. So once I get that finalized, I will send that over to you so it can be shared.
Sounds great. Okay, thank you very much. And then, so Will, there's another, I think this is a great question. So if you can tell us, through your work, right, and when you're getting all of these requests, if you can tell us when you have experienced these going very well and these going very bad, then if you can give us a couple of examples.
Yeah, I mean, so going very well it's a pretty common occurrence when you have buy-in from your stakeholders on the importance of visualization, right? That's definitely a value add that makes the whole thing just simple. So being brought to life from idea to solution is we do that constantly. It's a lot of stuff. We've got a good book of work on my team already on things that we can say, hey, we'll look at these other examples. We've solved something similar to what you're looking for, and just kind of walk our stakeholders through that. Now, when it has not gone well, I've been in meetings where people like, stop making things fancy. And I said, well, that's not fancy. It's a bar chart. But look, it's a bar chart that you can click on and you can hover over this and it does all of these things. So it's not building anything fancy. You're getting exactly what you need, but you're getting more information. You're getting more analysis. You're getting more, right? And so that's people who are not used to the tool or to more advanced visual analytics. It can sometimes be like a space they're not comfortable with. But I think the more that you show people, your end users do understand data visualization, because a lot of times people say, well, I need this table because my stakeholders don't like data viz. They don't understand data viz. But then you say, well, I bet you every one of your stakeholders has looked up like the price of Bitcoin or a stock on Google or something. They understand data visualization on a trend line. They know a KPI because it's showing the price of the item at that point in time. They know context because it's saying it's gone up or gone down over this time period, right? Your end users know it. It's how do we tell it in a way that makes it relatable to this process? So then start working through that aspect. So you do have to be comfortable in pushing back. I'm a little bit more blunt than probably others because I'm passionate about this. But that's
I think a lot of us are, and sometimes I love how Steve Wexler has some of those exercises, right? That make you understand the difference, right? Find these on the table versus find these on the graph, right? And
Mhm.
that I will never forget when I saw that once, and it's like you can see it in seconds, right? But yeah, that's great. Thanks a lot. And so, how and when do you define MVP and get the agreement
Yeah.
when the
So
requirements are coming from multiple stakeholders and are similar to each other?
So I've never liked the term MVP. So for people who are not doing agile method, it's the minimum viable product. So I don't like MVP because it sounds like this is good enough. Like I don't want something that's good enough. I want something that is good to provide the basic requirements of what the stakeholders had asked for. Now, as they dig in, so that to me is the MVP. Did we answer the questions that you posed up front? Now, maybe we don't have 100% of the additional data or whatever, but are we answering your basic questions? And if we're doing that, that to me is we've solved this problem. Now, maybe you have more questions that come from this. That's a phase 2 or whatever. But like, as long as I'm answering your basic questions, that is what we define as the MVP.
Okay. Do you ever do a demo as a kickoff to do nothing but study reactions?
Yeah, so that's the good thing about managing a team of developers is a lot of times they're doing the demos of the work that they've put together, and I will sit there and I'll just watch. I put people's faces, like depending on who the key stakeholder is, I just maximize their face on Zoom so I can just sit there and see like where they looking at. Are they using their mouse to click? Like those types of things. And if I see kind of like confusion, then say, okay, so I see you're a little confused. What are you confused? What are you looking at? Right. So like those types of things. And absolutely that is because that is when you start building more towards customer specific, end user specific design. That will also change how people interact with your dashboards, right? If it means something to them, they'll dig in, right? We're selfish people. Andy Cotgreave talks about that a lot on how people look for themselves in the data, whether it's their business, whether it's their name as it is, whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're always looking for your personal data as well. Like
Mhm.
you go to Zillow, you look for your house, or you go to your data too. But yeah, that makes sense. How much advanced math, statistics, algorithms is involved in your daily Tableau work? Minor part? Does it appear often? A lot.
As far as what would you like, my team, we don't do a lot of the advanced analytics or algorithms. JP Morgan is a very large firm, and we have the budgets to be able to afford data science teams. So a lot of times we partner with the data science teams. We talk about things that we need, and they come up with the models. They come up with the comparisons, those types of things, and we use that as our data set. But I mean, most of our advanced mathematics and statistics comes out of the tool. The tool does a lot of, this is your trend line, or this is your p-value of this trend of your data, right? You're doing a scatter plot, you put a trend line on there, and you can see, is there correlation, is there not, those types of things, but it's all out of the tool.
Yep. How do you get people to be more receptive to a biz they're not familiar with? Lots of people just want bars and lines, but they may not be, but that may not be the best tool.
I will anecdotally say 95% of all visualizations that you're going to create in the corporate world are bars, lines, KPIs. Small percentage of that is going to be tables. Shouldn't be like an Excel table. It should be something that's very focused table on a visualization. The other 5% are going to be like, maybe it's a scatter plot. Like scatter plots, you're going to use a lot, I think, as well. But your primary ones are going to be bars, lines, KPIs, and tables. Then you can have like your scatter plots. You can have, additional things. But I think a lot of people, a lot of new developers I have seen get bored with just doing a bunch of bar charts, even though those are the right charts, and they'll go and they'll find something else. Like, do I need to do a sunburst chart? Do I need to do like radial bar charts because it draws the eye? Well, does it tell a different story? Or are you telling the exact same thing, just, should have been a bar chart type deal, right? So I push back anytime I see a visualization that's not bar, line, KPI, and the aspect of what is that telling me that I shouldn't, that I didn't know otherwise? Why did we go this path? But people are receptive as long as it makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's also an element of you're comfortable with what you have seen before, right, and what you know, right? So there's always that element too. When they put something like that in front of you, you might lose some people because they're like, oh my god, what, I've never seen something like that. And I mean, it's nice. That's why we also have some competitions and things that we can do, and we always enjoy doing those. But sometimes you just stick to what works, right?
Yep.
Okay, that is the last question that I see here. Let me go to the chat for 1 second, see if there's anything else there.
I think let's move to the next presentation, Rui, to make sure we stay with the times.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you have any other questions for Will, just stay for the networking right after Robert and Diego wraps it up. We'll go to networking. You can ask some questions there as well. Robbie, you ready?
Let's do it.
Sounds good. Take it away.
All right, let me share my screen. Window. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yep. Cool.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk prototyping and the Tableau UI kit. So just for reference, I am not affiliated to Tableau. I'm not affiliated to Figma, and this is just a side tool that I've created to help developers prototype their Tableau dashboards. Just wanted to get that out of the way first. So what are the main topics today? So I'm going to talk about who I am. I'm going to jump into prototyping, a quick description of it, some benefits, Tableau UI kit, what is it, and some benefits. And then I want most of the time to be demo. So I'm going to try to go through the slides pretty quickly. So who am I? My name is Robert Janezic, and I'm a user interface designer working at JP Morgan Chase, where I work in the Tableau Center of Excellence, and I design websites and applications for 150,000 plus Tableau user base. And I'm starting to expand to all the other teams as well, not just Tableau. So I was previously an analyst for years, and I was really active in the Tableau community, always posting on Tableau Public if you've seen any of my work. But I've since gone design full-time, which I feel like the people that know me is not really that much of a surprise. I'm still heavily active in the Tableau community, though. You'll see me on Twitter a lot. I post on Instagram. I mean, obviously 95% of it, has to do with design, and I'm just communicating with people back and forth. So before we can really talk about the Tableau UI kit, which is a tool that helps you rapidly prototype Tableau dashboards, we just need to get a quick understanding of what prototyping is, because I feel like some people may be familiar with it, and a lot of people might not be as familiar with it. So the idea of prototyping is to, prototypes are a close replica of what the end result of the product is going to look like. And they incorporate most of the final UI design and interaction that the finished product will have. So I'm going to go into some main benefits, and there's a lot of them in my opinion, just being a designer, but I picked some of the, four that I think are the most pressing. So the big one for me, having worked in Tableau for years, right, and working with developers all day now, is to avoid tech. Tech can get really confusing, and there's all these niche type of things. So for example, if we're talking about Tableau, if you're prototyping before you go into the end result, which is Tableau, there's no data cleansing, there's no calculations. This is a big one, right? Because there's 2 billion different blogs about some niche hack that you have to do to, do something in Tableau. Those can come out all day, right? So nothing server related, and potentially there's no clunky design functionality. So, Tableau does really well with data visualization and analytics and things like that. But in my opinion, it's not a design tool, right? That kind of comes secondary. So some of the features, in my opinion, are a bit clunky. So you avoid some of that. Another main huge benefit is, I think, that just better quality overall for dashboards, right? You can conduct usability testing, and then you can check that it follows correct design and data visualization concepts, right? You can create a prototype, you can show it to your main stakeholders and your users, and you have other designers and developers in your team as well, and you can have conversations about, are we following, some design principles like CRAP, like contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. I know that's a super good acronym, but also making sure that it follows, data visualization best practices as well. So this lower cost one is big as well, and I don't necessarily mean it just in terms of like dollar amount. That could come into play, right? Just because it's less time. But for me, the lower cost has to do with the lower, the smaller amount of time it would take, right? So it's lower cost. Iteration at the design level is much less costly and time consuming than it is at the development level. So I see this all the time, right? Like I'll see, certain teams, if they don't have designers, what generally that happens, they grab a few requirements and then they just start going straight into code or into a tool like Tableau, and then they're build it up and they have to do all these technical things, and it takes them a while to do it, and then they show it to the stakeholder, and the stakeholder says, just kidding, actually these things either changed our mind, or it's not the best way to represent it. Okay, well, now we got to change everything, and it's just costly. It takes a lot longer to change things when you're in the end result tool. So feasibility is one that I've come into contact with specifically. So in my last job, I was at a consulting firm, and we were working with a client, and after gathering some requirements, we thought that for this specific example, multi-level Sankey really fit their scenario, right? So we drew up a prototype, we showed the client the end results of what a multi-level Sankey would be like, why it's efficient to show it in this way. They loved it, they thought it was great. But after the prototype, we realized, this is going to be a ton of work. But we talked with our data engineers and our developers, and we figured out, well, we actually can do this. So basically, the thing with feasibility is, if you went straight from gathering requirements saying, I want a multi-level Sankey, and then you spent 2 weeks trying to create that multi-level Sankey, in Tableau, and then you showed that end result to the client or your, user, they could say, actually, we don't want to show it that way. We don't like that, essentially. And you basically just wasted all of this time when you could have just prototyped it out first, shown them, gotten some feedback, iterated, and then gone to the final tool, which could be something like Tableau. So now that we kind of got prototyping in general out of the way, we can jump to the point of this presentation, which is the Tableau UI kit. Actually, first we have an amazing quote, a design quote that I absolutely love, that really brings this home. So if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. And I've seen this time and time again, where I just explained it. People will go straight from gathering requirements to the end tool that they're going to use with bad design, with no user input, and it takes so much extra time when they really should have just been prototyping it out first in the first place. So keep this quote in the back of your mind when you're thinking about just going from requirements to the end tool. So now we can jump to the Tableau UI kit. So you're probably saying, what is a UI kit in general, right? The Tableau community is probably not familiar what with, some of you might be, but most of you probably aren't, what a UI kit is in general. So I can talk about that, right? So it's a collection of assets that contains a set of design elements such as UI components and styles, right? And you're probably not even familiar what UI components are, right? Because Tableau doesn't have UI components, built into it natively, right? Something like Figma has features where you can create components and reuse them over and over. So the Tableau UI kit is a kit that was built in Figma that allows users to rapidly prototype Tableau dashboards, and you can stick to brand guidelines while doing so. And that second piece is really big for me, right? A lot of teams have, brand guidelines that they use, and they want to make sure that they're sticking to them. Figma has a ton of different features that you can, set your own styles. And I've made it so that all of the styles were applied to all the components so that, whichever team would use the Tableau UI kit, you can add in your own brand guidelines and styles, and all of your prototyped dashboards will look that way. So what are some main benefits of the kit? So consistency. So you can feel at ease knowing developers will design consistently for all dashboards going forward. And I know that's a big thing that probably, for example, like Will probably goes through that, right? So he probably has different developers that he needs to make sure that all of these developers are designing with a consistent look and feel, because otherwise it just feels disjointed, and it doesn't feel like one team is developing these dashboards. Customization. So generally when you're building UI kits, you want to make sure there's as much customization as possible. So for example, if you're using the bar chart component in the Tableau UI kit, you don't want to just drag the bar chart into the pane and then that's it, right? You don't have any options to customize it. So I can show you that in a little bit. One-to-one. So a lot of people will come to me and say, I don't want to prototype because I don't feel confident that our prototypes can look one-to-one with Tableau. Well, that's not really an issue anymore, right? The Tableau UI kit, and this is kind of gross, but I painstakingly took a snapshot of every single Tableau component and put it into Figma and matched it one-to-one, right? So everything matches exactly as what it is in Tableau, so you don't really have that issue anymore. And that's a big thing that people come to me with. Simplicity. So Tableau is super easy to use, right? Drag and drop functionality. It's the same thing with the Tableau UI kit, right? You can just drag and drop functionality, and there's responsiveness too. That's another big thing that people tell me they don't like about prototyping, right? They'll say they'll design something, and then, to make small changes to make it, 100 pixels wider or 100 pixels taller, they have to do all this work to make it so, and that's just not an issue anymore, right? I spent a ton of time making sure that everything is responsive. So when you drag it on, you can just put it to your exact size. So here's some stats for you, and this might not mean a lot to you, but just know it's a lot, right? So 1100 plus components and variants, and I'll show you those in a little bit. There's 1,000 plus different styles, and there's 2,200 plus different dashboard layouts for you to choose from. So there's really no shortage of customization and things you can do to make it look exactly what you like it. So let's jump to the demo, which I have right here. So this is the Tableau UI kit. And if you're not familiar with Figma in general, Figma is by far and away the most popular prototyping tool in the design industry. And if you don't believe me, you can just look up 2021 design survey, which just surveys designers across the entire world. And Figma by far and away is the most popular tool with the most amount of features. And it's very similar to Tableau with the community. Everyone's really hyped about it, things like that. So it's pretty clear why I'm attracted to it as well. So this is what you're going to see when you first open the Tableau UI kit. This is kind of just like a who am I, what is this all about type thing. And on the left here, we have navigation to different pages, getting started. So, if you don't know what a UI kit is, things like that. Atomic design, which is really big, and I'm sure most people aren't familiar with it, but I don't really have time to explain it specifically, but I would look up atomic design after this, just for more familiarity. It's the idea of componentizing the smallest atom, they call it atoms, and then go up from there, where you're combining multiple atoms to create molecules and then organisms, templates, and then pages. And if I go back one, actually, what's a component? This is not a Figma crash course, right? So I'm not going to exactly explain what a component is. You can look at what it is, what are variants and what are styles. How-to videos I've created 7 videos about me, sharing my screen and talking about these different types of things. So file navigation, using components, variants. How do you build dashboards using the kit, icons, and styles? And styles, so this is a big thing that I wanted to build in. So, at JP Morgan as well, and a lot of other places, they have very specific needs about the way they want charts to look. So for this example, for an axis, what should the title color be, right? So what should the font be? What should the tick text color be? And it gets very granular, right? And so you as a team have the ability to come in and change these and make sure any developer in the future, if they're not sure on those very ticky-tacky type design things, they can come in here and just look at what's here. Palettes, these are all the Tableau palettes. And then we have some Color Brewer palettes, and then we have Tailwind and Viridis palettes as well. So these are some examples that I've created to just show people how quickly, not necessarily how quickly, but I created all of these in 5 to 10 minutes probably. But these are just examples for you to look at. Scratchpad is just for you to play around with. And this is where we get into the components for the Tableau UI kit, right? So we have axes and different labels and titles, columns, and cells. And then this is where we get into the actual charts, right? So these are the components for line chart, bar chart, pie, scatter, table, KPI. And this is a V1, right? So I'm going to continuously add new charts onto this in the future. And then this is where I get into me talking about, how I said I took images and I just replicated it one-to-one. So these are all, one-to-one replications of the different things from Tableau, right? So we have dimension filters and measures and dates and range of dates, things like that. And we have parameters as well, tooltips, and then things like other, highlighter, legend, and pages, things like that. This is where we jump into the dashboard section. So these are all components that have to deal with building a prototype, using the Tableau UI kit. So we have dashboard components and footer and paragraph, title, KPI filter stack, things like that. We got icons as well, and I'll explain, how to use these in the future. But these are just a ton of different icons you can choose from. Changelog, license agreement, and cover. So let's actually start demoing some of this. So let's say you're in a team, and let's say you're just Will, right? Will tells someone, can you come up with a prototype or something, or a manager, whoever it is. And you need to start building something, and you just want to build a chart to start, right? The easiest way to do this is you just go to assets in the top left. I can look for the bar chart component and just drag it on here, and just like that, you get a nice looking bar chart. And you could leave it like this, or you can start customizing it, which is what I was talking about earlier. And this gets into variants, right? Variants is a Figma feature where you can slightly change the design of things, and you can use the UI of Figma to change it, right? So for this example, I don't want a title. So on the right here, you can see my cursor over title. I can just click that. I can click into it a little bit more, and you get more options, right? Do I want this to be horizontal, vertical? Do I want the dimension axis, measure axis, things like that? I'll leave these on for now. But let's get even more in the weeds, right? So you can see there's about 10 bars here, and I don't want the labels. I only want the labels for the min and max, right? So how would you go about doing that? So you would just get down to this level. You would say, no, I don't want the labels. And then you would just select the 2 bars that you want, and you would say, right, okay, cool. So the next thing you might want to do is, all right, I want to change the color I only want the min and max to have, color, because you want to show just have higher contrast. You want to make it stick out, right? So I can click Control and Alt, click these bars real quick. And then if I go here to this style section, these are the 1,000 plus styles I was talking about, right? So you have 1,000 styles to choose from. I can just choose like a light gray. And just like that, I get a nice looking bar chart. Let's do another one. Let's do a scatter plot. So let's go back to assets. Let's spell scatter plot correct. Scatter plot, drag that in. You get a nice looking, and you'll notice what I'll do right here. If I can just make it larger and smaller, everything scales perfectly. And I can show that a little bit more. For this example, I want a title, but I don't want a y-axis, and I want the dots to be variable size. Let's say, you're putting size into Tableau in the size category. So how would I do that, right? So I want a title, so this is good. I can double click in. I don't want that. And let's say, for example, I don't want to access label. Cool. Click in one more time. And do I want size to be something I want? Yes, I do. And just like that, I get a scatter plot that looks great. And for all of these, there's variants for everything. So I could go into this specific axis and say how many tick marks I want, because you can do that in Tableau as well. I want 5, for example. So let's build everyone's favorite chart, which is pie chart. Pie chart, drag that in. And for this specific example, I only want 3 slices and I don't want a title. So get rid of title. I can click in here and you can see the different sizes. Pie size just means how large or small the actual pie is. Slices, I want 3. Do I want the slices to be equal? No, I do not. Okay, cool. Do I want labels? Yes, I do want labels. And just like that, you can get a pie chart where otherwise that took me 10 seconds. And then you can even go, let's actually make it what you might actually want to use a pie chart for, right? So I could do 2 slices and then make this like a light gray. Make this a light gray. And this could be 75%, even though it's not, just for example, and 25%. So you can see how quickly you can just build a chart and then put in your own labels. Now let's talk about probably what everyone is interested in. How do I actually build a dashboard using this tool, right? So the same thing goes with dashboard. So you can just type in dashboard, drag it in, and you get a dashboard. Let me just put it up here more. So you can see to the right here what options I have, right? So I have a title, filters, and KPI section. Do I want one? Yes or no? And if so, do I want it left, right, or top? For this example, I'll keep it left. And do you want a footer? Yes or no? I want all of these just to start. So let's say, for example, I'm building a dashboard that has some navigation, right? Because Tableau has the navigation feature where you can go from like a home dashboard to some other dashboard. Previously, you probably would have had to spend some time, messing with the title, and you have to do a bunch of stuff, but not really anymore, right? So I want breadcrumbs. So I can just click on breadcrumb, it adds it in, and then I can just hide some of these. And I could call this home. I could call this profit. And this could be profit dashboard. And I could say this is subtitle. Cool, and now our title is done. Cool with that. What's the next step? So let's work with this KPI section. So I don't want subtitles on either of these titles. How would you get rid of those? You just get down to here, say I want subtitle. No. Cool. Now for this specific example, I only want 3 filters, for example. You can go into the ones you don't want. You could hide these, but also you want to show what a dropdown of a filter would look like. So I could just call this region. And how would you actually go about switching this so there is a dropdown? So let me get into, if we go back one, drop down, cool, it's region. This could be south, north, west. Okay, the KPI filter section is done. Now for this section, how do I actually start populating this dashboard with charts, right? So what you're going to do is go into the swap component. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to swap it in for a layout, right? And before, you might have noticed that when I went to dashboard, there's a bunch of different layouts. These are all the different layouts you have at your disposal. So if I go back to Scratchpad, actually, let's look at one we want. So let's say for our specific prototype, we want this layout. So this is random 13. Let's go to Scratchpad. Let's get down to this swap. And now you'll see something that appeared. It's called layout, right? So it was called random 13. And watch what happens when I change it to random 13. The layout of the content section is automatically appeared. Okay, now you might be asking, how do I populate these sections with my bar charts, right? So for this example, I want 2 bar charts and a scatter plot, for example. So all you would do is hold control, you would click the 2 that you want to be bar charts. And this is actually called replace me. So it's saying replace me with, what do I want to replace it with? The bar chart. Cool, it's replaced. And I don't want a title, so I can get rid of that. I can do the same thing for this. I can go to replace me, scatter plot. I don't want a title. And just like that, you get a layout that's super quick. You can talk to your developers, designers, whoever, if these are the correct, charts you want. And then obviously what I did before with these, you can do with these charts. But I'm running out of time here, so I can't really show you going into each one of these. Now, what people do a lot of times for something like a footer is they want to say, when was the last time it was refreshed? So this could be last refreshed at 3:15 p.m. And now I want to change this icon to like a timer, for example. So now if I get down to this actual image in the layers, you'll see here, you can switch it out with, I can just type in time or something like that. Cool, there's a timer icon. I can just switch it out. And you can see within minutes, I created a really well looking dashboard. All the styles look great. There's good white space between all of these things. You can see drop downs, and it actually looks like Tableau. And that was just within a few minutes. So I got a couple minutes for questions here until the next. I know that was pretty quick and there's a lot, but one thing I do want to say is if I go to here, you can visit tableauuikit.com if you're interested. If you have more questions, and you can reach out to me at rjanezic2@gmail.com. Cool. Yeah, I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Robert. It was really, really, really cool to see what you built there. I mean, I've been following you in Twitter for a long time, and I can see all the love and passion that has gone into that UI kit. It's been going on for a while. So it's good. It's good also for those that kind of newer to Tableau. You can see a lot of people have started using Figma lately. Probably not all of them using it actually for building business dashboards. A lot of them to do more like fancy things that probably you're gonna see now that we're in Iron Beast season. So we have a few questions. So how much do you normally spend kind of in the prototyping?
In Figma, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm in Figma 95% of the day. My main job is creating websites and applications. So you can just imagine whatever company you're at, if whatever user interfaces you use, that's basically what I'm doing. I'm designing all of these applications and websites inside of Figma first. And then, once we get sign off from some of the key stakeholders, that's when I pass it off to the devs. So Figma is essentially my main job at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, and I imagine then, because the second question is like, do you do this only for like bigger projects, or you do it for like smaller ones?
That's a great question. That's something I was going to bring up. So I understand people do ask me this, where they'll say, all right, I want to create a dashboard, but it's really not that big, right? It could be
Yeah.
like a table and maybe a bar chart. That's it. But if it's not a big thing where a ton of people are going to view it, I can't lie to you and say that, yeah, you should 100% prototype. I would say medium to large projects, you should definitely be prototyping, right? So if a lot of eyes are on it, if it's something that's going to get a lot of feedback, 100% prototype. But the smaller projects where like 2 people, your manager, and like 1 other user is going to be using it, you don't really need to prototype, right? I can't just tell everyone to prototype always.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, I mean, especially because it's true in Tableau, you still have that drag and drop element. If it's just a very small thing, you can probably just kind of do it on the fly.
Yeah.
So this is probably more related to the Tableau, the UI kit. So is there any ability to prototype, for example, those elements that are not immediately visible, like tooltips, like collapse filters, or
Yeah. So a good example is, the Tableau filters, for example. You have all of these options. So if you go to right now in Tableau and you put in a filter, all of these options are there, right? There's the single value list, single value dropdown, single value slider. And these are all the different options that you have for single value dropdown, right? You just have the base one. What does it look like if you have a title, all, and dropdown? And then these are all the different variants. So I'm pretty sure I got all of them, right? I looked through the entire interface, and I'm pretty sure they're all here. So really, whatever you want to do, that's a user interface type of thing in Tableau, they have it, right? And I've actually talked to a design director at Tableau, and they use Figma to design all of these user interfaces first, right? So it's interesting that it's going back to here, right? It's just that they won't release it type of thing.
Yeah, and that other thing kind of like around tooltips. So if you were to go, do you have that?
Tooltips. So you have an option to, and these are the default ones where default. So there's
kind of go and look.
Tooltip, no, yes, this is a Vision tooltip, and this is actually a bar chart, right? So I can add or I can't add, right? So you can swap these in and out with whatever chart you want. So tooltips are there as well.
And well, I guess this also goes to the fact that kind of what you mentioned, that you use this for website and everything. Is this like, can Figma also use it for like Excel or R websites or Python dashboards? And I guess you could, probably not the UI kit, but you could use Figma for
so
prototyping other things.
For reference, UI kits in the design world are massive, right? So you know how Tableau has Tableau Public, right? That's like our place where people can publish things. Figma has a super, just as popular thing called Community, where people have uploaded thousands of different UI kits. This is just the only Tableau UI kit, right? So a lot of the UI kits people use for iOS, like you're developing an application for your iPhone or something like that, or it's a website, UI kit, or it's something more specific or application. So visit Figma Community. If you just want to grasp your head around UI kits and just in general the design community.
Find that. Yeah, well, and the last one, I guess probably is less than a question, but it says like to be careful about designing things that cannot be done with Tableau. But I mean, from my perspective, as a Tableau user, and like to consider quite advanced user, at least what I see in the UI kit is really taken. Everything is taken from Tableau. Everything that you do there, you will be able to replicate it in Tableau. So it's not something that that you're gonna design in the UI kit and then suddenly not gonna be able to actually put it in production.
Yeah, the big thing that came to me for why I built the Tableau UI kit is because I was already using Figma a lot before, like just for my job before it got more popular in the community, and I would always see it for like use it for this background or use it for like some sort of image. And I'm like, oh, I'm using this. This is what I use for presentations, right? Like I build all of my presentations in here. You can see I use it for pretty much everything. And,
Yeah.
most teams across, the entire industry use Figma for their design systems, right? Like whatever company you're at, their designers are more than likely using Figma to create all of your applications, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I would never put anything in the kit that's not usable in the real world, right? So as of now, it's just like the main stuff: pie charts, line charts, bar charts. Yep.
Yeah, and I can see. Well, no, thanks a lot, Robert.
Yeah,
This was
for sure.
really, really useful. Hopefully everyone, got something out of it. And remember, you can reach out to Robert if you want to learn more about the UI kit. So,
Yep, for sure.
and before we go into the networking, I'm just gonna present a couple slides and just some finishing things. So I hope you can see the slide. I'm not sure if Rui is there or someone. I'm just going to present anyway. Some upcoming Tableau events related to financial services. This was sent to us by someone in Tableau, Megan. That is, she manages the Bolt, which is the financial services kind of like Tableau section. So we have on the 25th of January. So it's leveraging your HR analytics to attract and retain top talent. And in the 27th of January, there is the Einstein Discovery Technical Deep Dive hands-on workshop. If you go into the Tableau Financial Services Vault, you see a lot of recordings from previous sessions. I was one of those a few months ago on ESG data, so you'll find a lot of financial services data. So that's really good and important. The second announcement, well, say Salesforce celebrate Team USA. So Team USA is data driven by Tableau. So we're gonna send you the slide so you can check how Salesforce is rocking the Olympic Games as gold, and keep following the Bolt for fun Team USA data fun. And the other very important announcement, we are in RMB season, so the RMB qualifier is open, is accepting entries. Until the 7th of February, you have to create your visualization. The topic, if I'm not mistaken, is around art. So you can choose anything art related, build your visualization, share it there. And also is a really good place to start looking for some visualizations to learn, get inspiration, see what other people is building. Is usually when you see everyone throwing all their skills into Tableau, and you also will probably see a lot of things built in Figma. Very important, this is our first user group meeting. I'm very happy you all decided to join us. But we have put together a survey to understand more what you would like to get from this session. So there are a bit of like logistic questions, like which time zone could be best for you, how frequent you want the user groups to be, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Right now, we are thinking of doing them quarterly, depending on how much interest we get and the answers on the survey. So if you really are interested in having more of these sessions, we could start thinking of maybe doing something monthly. And yeah, questions around which topics are you interested with, finance topics, what type of sessions you want to have. You want to have maybe more time for networking. You want to maybe have like a smaller technical, you want to learn some charts, or you want to hear stories about how other people in the industry is using Tableau. So hopefully you want to answer this survey because you want to help the user group, but we also are going to be raffling $100 Amazon gift card among the respondents. So you have a QR code there, you can scan it and get the survey. We also have the link, and as I say, we're going to be sharing this around after the meeting. Yeah, and it shouldn't take you more than 2 minutes to answer. I answer it in less than 2 minutes. And now Remo, so we're gonna shut down the presentation mode. You're gonna get assigned randomly to a table. The idea is that you turn your mic and your camera on if you want. And yeah, you can start talking amongst each other. You probably, hopefully, will see Will and maybe Robert. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to stay, and maybe you can ask them some questions there. And you can change tables just by doing double click. And if you have any issues with remote, just refresh the page. And last but not least, we have another QR code there in the corner. Is our Slack channel. So you can join a Slack. You can talk to us there, and we can keep the conversation going. So again, as part of the team, thank you again for joining for this
Yeah.
session, and thank you so much, Will and Robert, for presenting. And any of you want to present, please reach out to us. You have a section in the survey for that. Yeah, and we're looking forward to see
Thank you.
meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming, and the speakers. Thank you very much. And I posted the form on the chat as well, the survey form.
Perfect.
So, thanks, Diego. Okay, let's do it.